Welcome everyone to a very special edition of Retro Encounter. Unlike our normal ones, this is what we're titling a bonus round episode. We'll be talking about a very special topic, completely different than just playing through games.
We're gonna smash a car to a timer, and then have those points added to our score at the end before we fight M. Bison.
Was I supposed to get a car before we started this?
What, you don't have the car? Then how are we supposed to lightning leg it into the ground?
Oh, this whole podcast is blown.
Oh, damn it. Well, how about we talk about something else instead?
What would you like to talk about, Mike Sollosi?
Well, Josh Curry, I was thinking we could talk about Blizzard.
Blizzard? That's not an RPG.
Well, no, it's an item commonly found in Dairy Queen restaurants, but it's also a video game developer of popular titles such as Warcraft, Starcraft, and Diablo.
It's almost like you practiced that. You're making it sound very professional. I'm not sure I like this.
All right. I'll make it more casual. So, BlizzCon happened a week and a half ago or so, and we want to talk about it, right?
Absolutely. Why wouldn't I want to talk about BlizzCon?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we record Retro Encounter, quite often you're playing Hearthstone and I'm playing Diablo.
Yes, and everybody has to tear us away from it. And nobody ever seems to actually happy to have to do it because they're like, you should know by now we're almost 20 we are 20 episodes in. Wow.
At least once, I think it was Caitlin or Marcos asked that I stop clicking so loudly because I don't know, I was in a greater rift or something, and my Diablo super clicking was very audible.
The worst part is though, even with your quote unquote super clicking, you're still quieter than our editor Peter Triesenberg's typing on a keyboard.
Oh well, I mean, look, he has the microphone right on his laptop, and I have a desktop mic setup, so it's that's not a fair comparison, but whatever.
It's neither here or there. So BlizzCon happened. We're actually a full week out of BlizzCon, so it's kind of nice. We got to see, like, Hearthstone came out, which they announced. There's more news about Starcraft since that's all rolling out to everybody. So we kind of get to take a step back from the excitement and getting caught up in the news and kind of take a deep breath and actually look at it in a kind of a slightly more calm manner. I think we're both very still excited.
Yeah, I'm the announcement, the changes that were announced for Heroes of the Storm at BlizzCon roll out in a few days on November 18th, which dates this podcast as a few days before November 18th. But I'm super excited for all of it. It's going to be so great. I mean, the only Blizzard games I play super deeply now are Heroes of the Storm and Diablo 3, but all of the changes look really exciting.
Yeah, so I just kind of explain my history with Blizzard.
Oh, sure.
I was aware of Blizzard, obviously, always, and I was always aware of who didn't know about World of Warcraft, right? Mm-hmm. I jumped in around Burning Crusade, but I was still a very casual Blizzard follower, and it wasn't until kind of things were ramping up for Starcraft II that I don't know how or why, but I got super involved. I was watching streams back then when it wasn't even necessarily as big of a thing. But I was watching every tournament for Starcraft, and that's kind of how.
Did you never play the first Starcraft?
Oh no! So the first Starcraft is like one of my terrible things of shame. I did not play it. I was not a PC gamer at all. And I got it, and I have played the tutorial mission and the first mission 15 times.
Permission to speak freely, sir. Yeah, I played a lot of that, but keep going.
And every time it's like I get to that and it's like, well, I finally got to where it's going to be new content. I'll turn it off for the night. I'll jump in tomorrow, and then the next day rolls around, and I was like, all right, well, I got other stuff to do. And so that's how it's always been, and I sadly have done the same thing with StarCraft II. It ends up being I more so just enjoy watching StarCraft more than playing it, I guess. I like the storyline, but I just don't. Which is funny because I love that game type typically. But yeah, that was kind of me leading into like, oh, there's this Blizzard world. Like, I really enjoy this. And even if I wasn't going to play the games, I became kind of a rabid fan from that point on.
Yeah.
That's kind of like short story of it.
Sure. For me, I guess I started a little earlier than you. Around the same time, probably 96-ish, I I played Diablo at a friend's house with a LAN network and Warcraft 2 at the same friend's house via a LAN network, and I was really keen on both of those, even though Diablo scared me a little bit. I think I was like 10. I think I was 10 years old, and the butcher was scary.
No, I was
So
about the
yeah,
same, like same age, and you're like you. It's one of those like I'm playing this, but I know my parents don't want me to be playing
yeah, it
this.
was at a friend's house. But anyway, I managed to we our computer was okay at my house, even though our internet wasn't. So I got Warcraft 2, but could only really play the single player and custom maps because my internet was so bad. And but I really loved Warcraft 2, and I eventually got into, as my computers got better and my internet got better, I was able to play Starcraft and Diablo 2 within a few years after they first came out. And Warcraft 3 was one of the most exciting PC game launches to me for me ever, because I loved Warcraft 2 and Warcraft 3 looked so good.
Hmm.
So I played Warcraft 3 shortly after it came out, but I never played WoW, and that's because I am terrified of MMOs and what they might do to me, since I have a, I love RPGs and I have sort of an addictive personality. So if I can get obsessed with an RPG and play it 80 hours in 6 weeks, what would an MMO do to me?
It'd be 80 hours a day.
Yeah, it
I
would be
know that I know that math doesn't work out, but that's what
right.
it feels like.
No, I would bend the space-time continuum and play more than 25 hours a day of an MMO. So I've avoided WoW all these years, but I still, whenever a new expansion comes out, I'll go and read wikis and stuff to figure out like what they've been doing in WoW since I've never been playing it. When Frozen Throne came out, I was like, oh, they're finally gonna take on Arthas, and when Cataclysm came out, I was like, oh, they're fighting Deathwing. This is awesome.
Yeah.
So like I am pretty, I'm not deeply knowledgeable, but I have a decent feel of what the WoW lore is doing, and I've been obsessed with Diablo really since Diablo 2, but I've been a longtime fan of Blizzard and their games for many years. I played StarCraft 1 when it in like the early 2000s, but never really got into 2. I am deeply entrenched in Diablo 3 right now, and even though I never was a MOBA player before, I really, really like Heroes of the Storm, and I've been playing that a lot the past 6 months or so. So it looks like you and I both enjoy our Blizzard games,
Yes.
and
Absolutely.
both of us followed BlizzCon quite closely. You now I think we talked about this before. You had a virtual ticket, right?
Yes, I had to get one. There was a
Okay.
card back with it. I had to do it.
Uh, I I thought about it. You get a Diablo pet and a Diablo portrait from it, and I think a mount in Heroes of the Storm, but I
Yep.
can't justify the $40. But now I wish I had, because of some of the new bonuses we learned about it. But if we can talk about that later. I was watching it on my phone at work on that Friday, but then only followed websites and blogs about it after the first main stage announcement.
Yeah, and that was the other reason. With where I work, I almost get no cell phone reception. And I at the I wanted to see all the main kind of talks, but I also wanted to watch the entire Hearthstone tournament. And we won't get into all the craziness that happened with esports, but
Right.
like I wanted to track all that, and it just makes it easier. I came home Friday night. I pulled up the full list of all the recordings, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna watch this. I'm gonna watch this. And I was just kind of like cherry picking, like, oh, let's watch Overwatch. Let's talk with them. Oh, let's watch them talk about Hearthstone. Oh, let's watch this game. And I just went through like Friday night. My wife was out of town, and I think I stayed up until like 4 in the morning catching up on everything. And then I like got my 2 hours of sleep. Like woke up, did all like my weekend housework, and I was like, all right, it is time to watch just all things Blizzard the rest of the night. Well, I guess the rest of the day, but it seemed like the rest of the night because I didn't stop until like 10 that night. Um, so it was a very Blizzard weekend for me, which it was spectacular. So the virtual ticket actually worked out. It didn't last year. I got it as well last year, and I felt kind of cheated.
Hmm.
But this year, I definitely got my money's worth of watching all the content, so it was nice.
Right. So, should we just go down the order of games that they talked about? Well, not only games. There's also some movie trailers involved from the opening ceremony.
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
So we'll start with StarCraft II, and then we'll just kind of wander around. No
Yeah.
alphabetical order, because screw that.
Sure. I think they had to start with StarCraft 2 really, because Legacy of the Void had just come out days earlier, or actually no, it was going to come out a few days later, right?
Yeah, it was coming in days later.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it came out on a Tuesday, and that big opening ceremony was the previous Friday. So there's a lot of Legacy of the Void talk.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the StarCraft fans were a little worried because StarCraft doesn't really have ongoing money making aspects to it. Like it doesn't have a subscription service.
Right.
It doesn't have in-game microtransactions like Hearthstone or Heroes do. So I think the fans were a little bit worried, but Blizzard announced that they were going to do add-on packs, like mission packs, story-related DLC.
Which is so cool. And
Yeah.
we're finally going to get our StarCraft Ghost, which we've been waiting for decades.
No. I mean, StarCraft Ghost was supposed to be a stealth FPS. This is going to be just more StarCraft 2 missions
No, so
about the Ghost character.
Funny story about this. I'm cleaning up my whole house. I keep all my console boxes so when I move, they don't get destroyed.
Sure.
I pull out my original Xbox box. Oh, that's terrible to say. On the back, back then they always had the pictures like Halo's coming out. This is coming out. This is coming out. And I look at one of the squares and it was
there
StarCraft Ghost.
There was a Ghost advertisement.
And I looked and I was like, oh damn. Probably the game next to Halo on that box I was the most excited for, and I was like that. Never even saw that. That sucks.
You know, I have a related story to that. I was going through old boxes a few weeks ago, and it was while I was playing Deus Ex for other Retro Encounter episodes, but I think it was before we recorded, and I found my old Final Fantasy VII PC box, which was this weird like trapezoid-shaped thing, and it had 2 ads on the back for other IDOS games because IDOS did the PC port. One was the original 2000 Deus Ex. And the other one was for Daikatana, which, is that disaster of a game.
Yeah, that didn't go very well.
Like, famously one of the most disastrous launches of all time. But whatever. Back to StarCraft II. Yeah, so, it's really cool that they're going to keep supporting the game through these packs, and the first one comes out in the first half of 2016.
Which I think is great. It's a great turnaround. One of the things, we're not going to jump to Hearthstone very quickly, but one of the nice things about Hearthstone is they have basically every 4 months there's new content.
Right.
And it's the same thing. You look at what they're doing with Heroes, what they're probably going to do with Overwatch, and it's one of those things. You're constantly getting engagement with the fans. You're giving them what they want. You're giving them a better experience, and arguably you could say that's one of the problems that WoW has been having is there's not enough content constantly.
Yeah, it only has these annual packs, and not to jump around a little bit, WoW has declined in users heavily for the past 2 or 3 years. Like when they peaked around, I think it was around Wrath of the Lich King or Cataclysm, their highest number of subscribers was around 11 or 11.5 million.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
Yeah, it's insane.
And now it's about half of that. It's 5 million and change now, which is. And
they even announced that they're not even going to talk about numbers anymore.
Yeah, which is not encouraging. But they don't. I think that it's not really worried. I don't think Activision Blizzard is worried about that anymore. WoW still makes money, but isn't their big money. Yes, it isn't their big money maker anymore.
Right, and I think that leads into there's reason to be concerned with StarCraft. You look at everything else; they're moving towards almost this free-to-play model of very fully esports, which obviously StarCraft is like the original esport.
Yeah.
But it doesn't suit itself as naturally to having this continuous content. And I think the mission packs are a really creative way to get around it.
Yeah, I mean it'll be a way for people to be interested in StarCraft once every 5 months or however often they release these packs, and it'll like you mentioned before, it's a way for them to engage in the community more than just once a year. And it'll make some money for them because I'm sure every StarCraft fan will want to download these packs.
Yeah, and it's already worked on me. I was hesitant with Legacy of the Void because I did not. I played a decent amount of the first one, did not play the second expansion at all, and I was like, I know I want this, but I'm not convinced I'm going to play it because you always get wrapped up in it's like, well, I have 2-3 years before the next expansion comes out. I don't need to finish this. But now with these not monthly, but this continual updates, it makes me want to jump in. It makes me want to catch up. I want to see all these little stories. I want to see what they're doing with it because I think it leaves lots of interesting opportunities for them to do really cool things with the story.
Yeah, and also I don't really know what the story of Legacy of the Void is since it just came out and I haven't been seeking out spoilers. but it'll let them continue the StarCraft story a little bit. And
Yeah,
that's cool. I mean, because the first StarCraft one was amazing. I was blown away by the story and the worlds and the lore and the three different races of StarCraft, and that they're gonna continue it in 2016. That'll be the 19-year anniversary of the first StarCraft. It's amazing that they're having it continue on this long. It's maybe not as not as richly detailed as what Warcraft has been doing, but it's really cool story stuff. Looking forward to how popular these packs end up being.
and I think that's the great thing about Blizzard is they always say they focus on fun, which anybody that's played their games will say yes. This out of anything else in this genre that they chose to make this game, this is probably the most fun, or at least is very close. Just to leave the argument, so I don't have to argue with anybody.
But no, Blizzard is the kings of real time strategy. You don't need to. No one's going to argue against that.
But it's their dedication to the worlds and the stories, and we'll use this as a kickstart to go into the actual Warcraft movie. But
Sure.
19 years, that's amazing. You look at Diablo, how long that's gone. You look at Warcraft into World of Warcraft now into the movie. They build these just huge worlds that you can just get lost in beyond just anything with games. You can go to the movie, you can go into books. You can now go into movies, and I could very quickly see StarCraft possibly doing something similar to the Warcraft movie.
Yeah, I think Blizzard did a couple games that weren't Warcraft or Diablo or Starcraft early on, like Lost Vikings and Blackthorn and stuff.
Right.
But basically from 1995 or 96 until they launched Hearthstone in 2013.
Yeah.
Those were the only three franchises they did.
And if anybody wants to hear about that transition period, I highly recommend the book Stay a While and Listen.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah, good rec. I haven't read that book, but I've heard other podcasts and other articles mention it.
It's absolutely fantastic.
But Blizzard is amazing at just building up the lore of those three universes that they were focused on so deeply for so many years. And if you're brand new to Blizzard and getting into these for the first time, you have basically 2 decades of lore and content to explore, which is overwhelming, but still pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But going to the very beginning of that lore is the Warcraft movie, because at the opening ceremony, Dr. Duncan Jones, who is the only movie of his I've seen is Moon, which is an amazing movie.
He's also done Source Code.
I didn't see that. But yeah, but he mentioned being a fan of Warcraft from the first game, and the first Warcraft movie is going to focus on the first game. They're not going to do any WoW stuff at all,
which is awesome for me.
Right,
I'm ecstatic about, because I like I said, I started with WoW, so I know WoW went on, and I know there's like 200 books out there of everything else, and you always hear like all these lore nuts, which you like listen to them as like, this is unbelievably cool. So for me, this is going to fill in an area that I just have zero understanding of. I kind of like picked up bits and pieces.
Yeah, most of my understanding of Warcraft 1 lore is from reading the manual of Warcraft 2, which I did when I was 10. But I think a lot of fans are like you, and most, if not all, of their Warcraft involvement is from WoW. And so for them to start at the beginning, when most of their fans would be coming from WoW, is a really interesting choice, but also makes me think, they're going to try and make this a mega franchise, aren't they?
This is like the new Marvel universe. Like,
they're going to make like 8 Warcraft movies, just going through an expansion and a half every movie.
I think it could be immensely cool. You start talking about, and the great thing is it doesn't have to be expansions as well.
Well, yeah, they'll just name them Warcraft 1, Warcraft 2. We don't know what kind of long-term franchise plans they have for it, but they have enough lore and enough main Warcraft story to do like 10 movies. And I wouldn't be surprised if the, board of directors meetings at Activision Blizzard are like, so how many movies can we stretch this out to be?
Yeah, and it's one of those things, first trailer, obviously, that basically everybody got to see, which it looks fantastic. Mm-hmm. It immediately went from, I was interested in the movie, like I knew I was going to see it. It went from, it is currently now, behind Star Wars, the most excited movie for me coming up in the next couple of years.
For me, it's probably behind Star Wars and behind Hateful Eight, since I'm a unapologetic Quentin Tarantino fanboy.
Fair enough.
But I I'm really excited by it. I think it's about Duratan, who is Thrall's father, and a bunch of different human royalty, including Arthas's father from Lordaeron. Even though Warcraft 1 and 2 I think is mostly Azeroth and not Lordaeron, but whatever. So, yeah, this is basically the generation before the Warcraft 3 characters. And the orcs first crossing from the Dark Portal, the demons first finding the orcs and trying to influence them, and yeah, it's orcs versus humans. And
Which is it's so evocative. Even if you don't
yeah,
understand anything with Warcraft, you're just looking at you sit down on a Saturday with like your family, your spouse, whatever, like your girlfriend, and you're like, "Hey, let's go watch a movie." You're watching something, and you're like, "Hey, this is really cool. Look at those orcs. Look at this. This person's riding on an eagle. Look at those that big shoulder pads." It's something I could see
giant WoW
bringing.
shoulder pads.
Yes,
They all
it's
look
one
like
of those.
NFL linebackers.
I think the NFL linebackers would be terrified of the shoulder pads. It's one of those things that, like, I could see this bringing outside interest. Like, this is not originally when they announced it, was like there's going to be 12 million people that go see this.
And they will be the 12 million
Yep.
World of Warcraft subscribers.
But it looks like they've done such a great job with it. It's not going to be one of those traditional video game movies that it's for those fans. And it probably even pisses those fans off.
Yeah,
I see this being much more of a cultural phenomenon than I originally planned it to be.
possibly. And I mean, both you and I are very optimistic about the movie, but some people aren't as optimistic. They're accusing it of being too shiny because I mean
Yeah.
the CGI of the orcs looks really clean and nice, but maybe not as grimy or as gritty as the nasty looking orcs from the Lord of the Rings movies. But
Yeah.
I'm really excited. It's I mean they're gonna have a built-in audience of most of the Blizzard fan base, and because it looks like if you just bill it as a huge epic fantasy clash movie, then it could get some mainstream interest as well outside of the Blizzard mainstream.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited. I know Duncan Jones is a good director,
He's a great
and
director.
yeah, and he I don't know if I'll do this opening weekend, but I definitely want to see this in the theater.
Yeah. This is one of those things that I compare it to Avatar almost, just
Oh,
with
okay.
the little love story that they're having, possibly. Anyways, it kind of
Oh yeah. Who would it be the Garona and Medivh, I guess?
yeah.
Because I think they're characters in the movie. Paula Patton
Medivh is, I know that.
and there
Uh,
was yeah
but anyways, you start looking at that like more. If, I don't know the names as well, so I'm just gonna say the more human looking orc, and it's like, oh yeah, she's a girl, she's talking to a guy.
yeah
He's
well
human. That's gonna go down.
yeah that's Garona. She's half orc. At first that she thought she was going to be half orc, half human, but later in the series you realize she's half orc, half Draenei.
Right, I knew that.
Yeah, but and she's a major character in Warcraft 1. She's like a spy that goes between the humans and the orcs and is like a double agent. And she eventually has a child with Medivh. But I don't know. I don't know if they'll exactly go with the info that was in the in the Warcraft 2 manual.
Yeah, but yeah, it's one of those things. I compare it to Avatar because it was this big. I mean, there's a lot of CG, there's a lot of action, there's a lot of. I mean, there's just a lot of things to see on screen.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that it can be very both stimulating visually and with the audio, and something you can get across on a TV at your house. But I've watched Avatar in the theaters multiple times. I've seen it at home multiple times. It has never been as good as that first time I saw it in
Wow,
theaters.
really? I only saw
And
it once. I thought it was good, but I didn't need to see it again, I guess.
I didn't want to see it multiple times, but it was one of those things like, oh, my wife and I went. Oh, so and so has to go, and for some reason we have to go. And so I saw it like 4 times in theaters, and I was like, yeah, well, at least it was. I only paid for the first time.
Okay.
But it's one of those things. There was so much there. Like it was the first movie with 3D. I don't think I necessarily want to see this in 3D, but there was an experience there, and I think Warcraft could very easily be the same thing.
Do you think it could be sort of an event kind of a movie?
Yeah,
Maybe not at the level of an Avatar or a Star Wars, but you know, at maybe like one tier below that.
yeah. And
Cool.
it's one of those things. Like I show the trailer to my wife, and she hates World of Warcraft. Hates it because of with how my personality is. I disappeared for months.
It's funny
And
because a lot of people meet their spouses through World of Warcraft. Your spouse wanted nothing to do with World of
no,
Warcraft.
she hates World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy because they ruined my life. Um, and she saw this and she's like, "We need to see that. That looks really good." I think it could be a really big thing.
Cool.
So we'll move on to that. Something I know you're very excited to talk about.
Oh
Heroes of the
yes,
Storm.
I love Heroes of the Storm. You probably see me playing it if you log on to BattleNet. It's like and I'm not at work. I'm likely just idling in the menu or something.
Yep.
Heroes of the Storm, for you don't know, it's a MOBA, so it's a cohort of League of Legends or Dota 2, which all have their roots to Blizzard weirdly, but that's not a conversation we need to have now.
No, let's not do that
Yeah, let's
today.
not at all. So anyway, so MOBAs are basically 5-on-5 battles where you use sort of a simplified RPG character. Like throughout the game, you're fighting the other team, you're leveling up and learning new skills. And a match of Heroes of the Storm usually takes about 20 minutes. And they take characters from all over Blizzard universes. There's about, I want to say, like 44 or 45 characters in the game now. And and they're all Warcraft, Starcraft, or Diablo characters, except for the Lost Vikings, which are in the game and they're pre Warcraft Blizzard heroes. So, and for at BlizzCon this year, they announced a new battleground or a new map for Heroes of the Storm. They announced a new playstyle called Arena, which instead of having a giant map with like 6 forts on it, it's going to be just a simple skirmish, 1 fort, 1 objective, 1 lane map. They'll launch
Which
next, which
I
is
think could be so cool.
oh yeah, it'll be great. It'll be like a 10-minute match. Your character gets picked randomly at the beginning
I
instead of working on a detailed team composition.
I know that we're not going to talk about esports. I I hope that next year's BlizzCon there's a tournament just for that.
I think there'll be separate tournaments for traditional and arena.
I think that could be such a cool addition. And there's the general basic skills are still going to be present, but it changes enough about the strategy. You're not going to be jungling. You're not going to be doing this or that on the side. It's very concentrated encounters. And I think first of all, I think it's more dynamic for the general audience that is going to watch the game.
Yeah, well, I mean, basically, a regular game of Heroes of the Storm will be, this big map with multiple lanes, and the strategy will be like how you split up your team to deal with different objectives and stuff. And these arena maps are just going to be team fight right at the beginning, boom, and that's it. They're not even going to have regular leveling up. You just choose your special heroic ability at the beginning, and that's it. And the teams get ridiculous. Like there was one of the skirmishes that they show was 3 Illidan's versus 3 Illidan's. And Illidan's a Warcraft character, and in Heroes of the Storm, he's just a melee slashy jumpy assassin. But so they announced the arena mode, and they also announced 4 new characters. 3 of which are going to be at the end of 2015, and the 4th one will be who is Tracer from Overwatch. She's going to be releasing late next year. They only announced her because they announced you were getting her free in the Overwatch special bundle.
Yeah, the Origins edition.
Yeah, so she got leaked a little bit, and they acknowledged, yeah, she's going to be in the game, but we don't know when she's getting her. So
Yes.
the 3 characters that they did announce were Greymane, the werewolf from World of Warcraft, who interestingly is in the Warcraft 2 manual, but he's only mentioned as the leader of one of the kingdoms. And Lunara, who is a generic dryad from Warcraft. She's like not in any of the older games, but she's just a dryad, and they decided to name one Lunara. And the 3rd one is the really interesting one.
So cool.
It is Cho'Gall the ogre.
Two-headed ogre.
Oh yes, he's a 2-headed ogre. 2-headed ogres have been in Warcraft for a long time, but in Heroes of the Storm he's interesting because normally Heroes of the Storm is a 5-on-5 game, but Cho'Gall is controlled by 2 players. One player controls the warrior head who moves and attacks and has like physical special moves, and the other player controls the mage head who casts powerful spells. Basically, like while one head controls the ogre, the second player is riding shotgun and like blasting magic from him. If you choose Cho'Gall, 2 players control him, and you basically play 4-on-5, but he is much more powerful than a regular hero. It looks insane. I can't wait to try him. And the reports from BlizzCon was he is so crazy powerful that if you do well with him, you will win. But because he counts as 2 deaths and gives double experience and could potentially create a 3-on-5 situation just by him dying, like doing poorly with him will swing the battle the other way. But
Such a hard swing.
yeah, it looks so crazy and so fun. I can't wait to try him. And the craziest part of all might be how they're introducing him.
The Cho'Gall virus.
Yeah,
That's
yes.
the best phrase I've ever heard.
Yeah, they like immediately compared it to a virus when they described it, because now here's where I'm jealous about your virtual ticket, Josh. Anyone that attended BlizzCon in person or had a virtual ticket will get him immediately on the 17th when he launches. And so you will, and I won't. I think there's also a small lottery of people that will get Cho'Gall, but I'm not counting on that. So you'll get him, and I probably won't. But if you do have him, as long as one person owns him, you can play 2-player with Cho'Gall. So even though I don't have him, you and I could use him together in a battle. And as a non-owner, if I use him twice with owners, then I automatically get him. And if you play 4 games with people that do not own him, then you get a bunch of gold in Heroes of the Storm. So you play twice with me, then that means I'll get him. And if you play with 2 other people, twice more with people that don't own him, then you'll get a pile of gold that you can use to buy other heroes. And that, man, that's
Did they say how
crazy.
much gold it was going to be?
2,200.
It's not bad.
No, it's not bad at all. It's a hero costs between 2,000 and 10,000, depending on how recent they are.
Yeah.
The older ones are cheaper. But so yeah, every single quick match and every single versus AI match for the next several months are going to have a Cho'Gall in them.
There's just be Cho'Galls everywhere.
It's going to be Cho'Galls every single fight, and it's going to be amazing. He's going to shatter the meta. Like once they explained how he works, people immediately forgot all about Greymane and Lunara.
Yeah, that was the only sad part. Is like that's all anybody talked about. Nobody cares about the new maps. Nobody cares about the new people. Nobody cares about Overwatch starting to come in. Everybody cares about Cho'Gall, and that's all anybody has talked about.
It's crazy. I'm going to get very annoying bugging you to play with me as soon as it launches, so I can get him and then spread him to my friends via the Cho'Gall virus. And it sounds so awesome. Heroes of the Storm has been my major Blizzard addiction for the past few months, maybe even more so than Diablo III. And this sounds so crazy.
It really is. I guess the only downfall to this, which I'm not even sure it's necessarily a complaint, and I think you'll be able to give a good response to this. Blizzard typically does such a good job balancing everything.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Heroes of the Storm, for the amount that I have played, the feeling I always get, and this is where people say it's pay to win.
I don't really feel it's pay to win, but I've spent $20 in total, and they were all on mounts and skins.
Okay. Well, everybody always makes the argument that it's only the new character. Every new character that is added breaks the system. They're so overpowered that it just destroys the meta, and that's what everybody should be playing. And that's my only. And I understand there's lots of complexities to Cho'Gall, and obviously you don't have to buy them either, so it's not necessarily pay to win. But it feels like it is coming in and it is just going to destroy the meta.
Right. Well, that's
and it's
I understand where you're coming from, and in some cases that is true, but I don't think it's so much pay to win, so much as just power creep, where the new stuff will always be a little stronger than the old stuff. And in Hearthstone, it's even easier to say that, because you'll see cards that cost the exact same amount as older cards, but are, they're like a +3 bonus instead of a +2 bonus. They're clearly better, even though they cost the same amount of mana. But in Heroes of the Storm, they want it to be a big esport, so they really are focusing on balance. And sometimes it's better than others. Like when they introduced Leoric and Johanna over the summer, they immediately became the 2 meta warriors
Yeah.
until they got nerfed in September, October. But when they introduced Artanis and Medic uh, over the past 2 months, and Rexar in September as well, none of them really uh, entered the meta at all. Like Rexar and Medic were niche picks at the BlizzCon tournaments, and so sometimes it's true that the power creep happens in Heroes of the Storm, even though they'll typically nerf them a few months later, like they did for Johanna and Leoric. But there's no avoiding it with Cho'Gall. He is going to shatter the meta. Having a hero that is as good as two heroes just is you're asking for it basically.
Yeah, the only nice thing is because it takes two people. First of all, I just don't think there's enough players out there that are going to be good at it.
That's true, and I think in the pro scene he's either immediately going to get banned
Yes.
every single major match, or there's going to be anti-Cho'Gall strategies.
Yep.
Like if Cho'Gall gets drafted into a pro game, then the other team are going to draft a bunch of ranged giant killer assassins just to focus on Cho'Gall and have that 2-death swing happen in their favor instead.
And that's the only nice thing is there is lots of consequences if things go wrong.
Yeah, and at one level it's a bummer because any match that has Cho'Gall in it is going to immediately become a Cho'Gall centered match, but it's such a cool concept and and so much fun. And I'm not a pro player, obviously, so I'm really excited by it. And so yeah, that's going to happen in just a few days for us, depending on when we edit and release this episode.
Yeah,
but,
so that to kind of use that last as the next, we're just gonna keep rolling.
right.
So we're gonna roll into Hearthstone, but you had mentioned that it's something so different that it's changing how things work.
Yeah, and I love that, man. Like these aren't a bunch of just generic characters that are one move or one stat different from another character. There is nothing like Cho'Gall in any MOBA.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's many things like him in any video game. So I'm super excited to see what happens.
And I think that was one of the key takeaways I actually took away from BlizzCon as a whole is we had this understanding of what Starcraft was. Now there's mission packs. Boom, mind blown, right? And there's going to be a stealth focused one. Again, mind blown. We move into Heroes of the Storm. We have a character that's controlled by two people. Again, that's insane.
Mm-hmm.
Hearthstone rolls around, and what they've been doing is every 4 months it's either a huge expansion of like 200 cards, whatever, or they do a story expansion.
Sure.
Everybody,
I wasn't even aware that Hearthstone has much in the way of a story.
yeah, they do these little like fun things. They're cute. We'll use the word cute. But while you go through them, you get like 30-ish, 20-ish cards. So they came in. We're gonna have a new story expansion. Everybody knew it was coming. They blew everybody's mind by saying, "Hey, it's gonna be out in like 6 days." So as of this recording, it's already been out. Usually when they've done these announcements, we've had to wait like 2 months. So first of all, that was like, oh, this is a huge shift. The other big thing is everything that revolves. So Blizzard's a card game. It's a CCG.
No, Hearthstone is a cards game, not Blizzard.
Sorry, yeah. It's early. It's really early.
Yeah, we're recording this in the morning, so neither you nor I are 100%.
Hearthstone is a card collecting game. So you have a hand, you play down cards, you play down minions and spells, and you try to take down the health of the other opponent. It's very simple in premise. It can make sense very easily. There's lots of layers of complexity beyond that. But it's always at the end of the day you fighting against somebody else, whether that's the computer or it is another player.
Okay, so they're subverting the you versus someone else in some way?
Yes.
What?
So this is League of Explorers. It's kind of like Indiana Jones meets Warcraft. So how there usually is there's wings, and they spread this out across 4 or 5 weeks. And always how it goes is you fight 3 minions, and then you fight like the minions boss. So it's like mini raids, and then you have your raid boss at the end. You're doing this Indiana Jones kind of raid though, and so you are trying to collect this staff of origination. Stupid name, but it's Blizzard or whatever. And
Yeah,
so
sure.
you go through this whole thing, and the best explanation is think of the first Indiana Jones when he grabs the idol, and then he has to run out as like there's boulders chasing after him, right? That is what they're
Okay.
doing for the final boss for each wing. So instead of having to destroy anything, you have to survive. So they're doing this just like insane like survival, basically wave-based turn thing where you have to survive and do
So
anything you can.
so I'm trying to parse this. Basically, these special events for the staff origination will be you have to maybe defeat 3 enemies, and then the
Yep.
fourth final boss enemy is a survive X number of turns,
Yep.
where they just unleash on you, and
Yes.
you have to struggle until the end. And if you survive, then you complete the quest.
Yep. And so,
Wow.
thankfully, like this came out on Thursday, so I played it immediately. I was at work at lunch. I took like a special lunch just to be able to do it,
Hmm.
and rushed through it. Get to this, and it is like you could attack the other hero if you wanted, but it won't do anything. So it'd be idiotic to do it. And then turns just come up, and there'll be two choices, and like you can take 5 damage, or the second choice is you can take either 0 or 10 damage. And and so it's just like, do I take like the medium damage, or do I have a 50-50 chance? So like, there's kind of fun with that. There was another as you're escaping through this temple, there you see an idol, and like the choice was you can do nothing and you just continue on, or you can touch the idol, which might lead to danger, but there'll be one less turn for you to be able to escape.
Hmm.
And so like it's just kind of this. It's almost like you're choose your own adventure while you're doing this. They're dropping these crazy powerful enemies on the other side that you have to get rid of, and they always have like a normal dungeon and they have a heroic dungeon. I haven't done the heroics, but for the normal, you just had to survive 10 turns. But they were dropping things that were like 20 health, like 20 attack, 20 health, and it's like this
Okay.
is insane.
I
And
don't I don't have the greatest idea of what big numbers are in Hearthstone, but those sound big.
you only have 30 health, so
All right, and they're dropping minions like
yep,
non-player characters that have 20
yep.
and can deal 20 damage.
And they're having rock slides that are taking off both sides of their enemy, like the minions. So even if like you had put up this great wall to stop everything, there'll be a rock slide that destroys everything, and now you have nothing left. And it's just there. Hearthstone moving into BlizzCon, the meta for the actual game was very stale.
Mm.
There was the same archetypes. Everybody knew, hey, this is mage is coming out. It is going to be a freeze mage. It's going to be this. Like you knew exactly what to expect. There was only a certain number of cards. Maybe each deck had one or two different cards. It was very, very boring. Um, for this, they not only said, "Hey, we usually do 20," they're doing like 50 cards. So there's just more cards being injected. They're doing a lot of things to kind of mix up the game and change things. And then with the expansion, like the adventures, usually people just roll through them and it's like, all right, well that was stupid. I never want to play this again because I got it through it. And this is like they're getting more playful. They're having more stories. It's not so rote. And each expansion they've gotten better. And I think this one's just the next step along that path. I'm legitimately really excited.
Cool,
Uh,
and they're also adding another like 100+ cards to this expansion, right?
no, so it's just the 50.
Oh, okay, just 50.
Yeah. I think it's technically like 54.
Sure, right.
But like I said, usually for these adventures, it's something really small like 20. So it's double the normal, and they've always stuck to this 4 month thing, but they officially said, I think it was during one of the side interviews, that they're going to do now every 4 months. Uh, so it always seems like too long of a time, but then I look at how much money I spend. So I'm actually probably very happy it's only every 4 months.
All
Uh,
right, so yeah, that sounds exciting. I still think it's really cool that they're moving beyond, just one-on-one combat for one-on-one matches rather for Hearthstone. That's really fascinating
yeah,
that they're adding entirely new play styles to it. Just
yeah, and it's not anything to do with even BlizzCon per se, but at the same, they have these weekly tavern brawls, which they
oh,
just do these crazy mechanics.
right. I've
Um,
seen people on like once a week. I'll log on to play Diablo or something, and it'll four of my friends are playing Hearthstone Tavern Brawl. It's like
yeah,
okay, that's
yeah,
that's probably something.
yeah. So it's just weekly. If you win a game, you get a free pack, and they just do weird things to try to see like different ways people engage with games, how they like things. But during the BlizzCon week, they actually came out with there was one centralized boss, and both players were fighting against him instead of each
Hmm.
other, which is the first time they've done anything like that too. So they're definitely moving in a direction of let's make this something more than just player versus player.
That's
And
really cool.
yeah, it's a really good sign for the future of the game.
So, I don't know how long we want to make this podcast, but maybe we should move on to talk about
Well, we can move
Overwatch a
on to
little bit.
Overwatch. That's
Sure.
fine. I'm just as excited for that as I am Hearthstone.
I'm probably less excited than you are because I don't play a ton of shooter games, but I really think Overwatch is fascinating. It's probably most easy to compare to Team Fortress 2 since
Yes,
it's a team versus team. Is it 5-on-5 or 6-on-6?
I believe it's 5-on-5.
Okay, so 5-on-5. There's 21 characters. You choose your character at the beginning, but you also can change characters mid-match, or maybe just at the very beginning of the match. I haven't gotten into the beta, but it's these really crazy sort of cyberpunky, techno-punky designs, and the designs are wildly different because you'll have your regular, ninja guy and sniper girl, but you also have your super intelligent gorilla and and robots that launch turrets everywhere. A lady with an ice cannon. Like a samurai archer dude. Like the character designs are all over the place and charming as hell.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is you look at Team Fortress. I'm not going to knock Team Fortress. For when it came out, that thing was groundbreaking. Like, it was amazing.
And then some people still play the hell out of it.
Yeah, which is insane. But there is one for each class. And I think what Overwatch is doing very smartly is there's multiple different versions for each class. And so we're like we talked about heroes, like it's so fantastic. There's so many heroes, there's so many different possibilities for strategy. I could see something very similar emerging with Overwatch of yes, the ice cannon wielding Mia is good here, but if I have Genji the Techno Ninja, you should be choosing this person. You should be like Soldier 76. Like, and you can have teams that emerge that are very focused, and you can have those mind games like you have in a lot of the other Blizzard games of no, I think you're gonna go with this, so I'm gonna go with this. And I think there's an extra level of complexity there for people that want to go in, but still at the end of the day, it's a shooter. And
Yeah,
so
and well, I mean, it'll be less than a level of character complexity than in a MOBA because I think League of Legends has like 120 characters,
yeah,
and HOTS has I looked it up in the interim. It has 43 right now, and Overwatch only has 21, but that's still more than the 7 from Team Fortress, and
right.
it's a shooter and not a strategy action RPG thing.
I'm actually interested to see how quickly this becomes. I mean, obviously, at its core, it is an arena shooter. I'm interested to see how quickly this becomes, though, a strategy shooter.
Right, and the different potential for combos and strategies and for different classes and different types of characters. It really is fascinating. Right now, please correct me if I'm wrong, since I'm sure you're more well researched on Overwatch than I am. There's only really one kind of mission for Overwatch where you escort a vehicle or something and one team tries to get the vehicle to the location and the other team is playing defense and trying to sort of get the vehicle away from the location.
That's the main thing they've focused on thus far.
Okay.
I have to imagine. I mean, let's be honest. It is a shooter. It is going to have team deathmatch. It is going to have like King of the Hill type mechanics. It's going to have some sort of Guardian phase, which they've already showed. I'm confident they're going to have that normal gamut of kind of
Right.
different choices.
Yeah, right now, I mean, the game is still in beta, so this is anything that we talk about it is going to be we're not looking at the complete version of the game.
And neither of us are in the beta, so
Right, okay.
that makes it a little bit difficult too.
Sure.
So yeah, I've just watched a boatload of trailers, and and I actually have not watched anybody play it. I really should do that. But just watching all the trailers, they've focused more so on the powers, and that's actually what's more exciting for me. I've played shooters my entire life. Like I have no problem jumping into anything. But for me, I want something different. I want something that's exciting and new. It's so easy to be like, hey, this is Halo, this is Call of Duty, and here's the 20 derivatives of each of those. And that was Team Fortress was so wonderful, and I think that's why people always go back to it. Is there's not much like that.
And well, I think developers of shooters are moving in that direction in general because I think the new Call of Duty has character classes for
Yeah.
for one form of multiplayer.
So both Halo and Call of Duty have been trying more and more as they've moved on. I mean, the whole perk system, the different loadouts and whatnot, and they're moving into actually having skills. The issue is, and this is the nice thing about Overwatch being new.
Mhm.
There's none of that history. Like you look at Halo and it's like, well, my Halo that I go back to is Halo 1, or Halo 2 is when it was really good. And like you get into those like kind of pissing wars of like when this was actually good, and oh, this new Halo 4, like oh, it ruined this. And you
Yeah,
always have those people just complain about the great thing about Overwatch, it comes in new and fresh.
I've seen people complain about Call of Duty, saying it hasn't been as good as it was in 2007
Yeah.
when Modern Warfare came out.
Right. And like it's hard to get past that. I mean,
Yeah,
you look at those are just huge, huge games. Those are mammoths when they come out. Like the world shuts down for those to come out. And
I'm
it's one
nodding
of
in
those,
agreement, even though you can't see me in this audio only format.
it's just one of those things. It's like there's so many people there. There's no way you can. It's very difficult to bring in a new audience and still cater to that old audience. And definitely Call of Duty, they want the same thing over and over again. They just want a new kind of polish on it. And you get stuck in that rut that you can't really do much. And they're like, "Hey, we put zombies in it." I was like, "Oh, that's nice, but nobody cares." Um, and I think you have to turn to something like an Overwatch or Battleborn that you have something that starts fresh, that's from somebody that you most likely trust to be able to pull something off.
Battleborn is Epic Games, right?
Uh, it's Gearbox.
Gearbox. Okay, yeah. Epic Games is doing. Oh, Epic Games has some multiplayer jam that they're working on now. I
They're
just got confused.
doing that tower building game that they're still been working on forever.
Right.
Which I
Right. Okay.
cannot think of the name right
I
now.
can't think of it either. But whatever. It really is fascinating, especially since Blizzard has never released a shooter before. Put in your Starcraft Ghost joke here. And it's not a new type of game exactly, but they're taking it further than an arena class-based shooter has ever gone.
Right.
And Blizzard, if anything, if you play a Blizzard game, you know it will be polished to a blinding sheen,
Yes.
and it will be like play tested and run smoothly, like like crazy.
Yeah.
So and it'll be balanced every month and a half. So
Well,
I think you can. I'm sorry to keep interrupting, but you can really expect when Overwatch lands, it's gonna be something really cool that will immediately have a lot of people interested in it.
I think more importantly than that is it's something that you know you're going to have for a very long time. The easiest comparison I have to this is Evolve that came out earlier in the year, and everybody was super hyped for it. It comes out, and it came kind of like a wet fart in church.
Yeah, I mean, it over Evolve seemed cool when it came out, but who the hell is still playing Evolved in
Nobody.
November?
And they're not supporting it. There's no content updates. They have left that thing to die. And the one thing about Blizzard is, first, they do not let their things die. They just double down on it. And then with them being so focused on esports, you know that we're going to be here 2 BlizzCons from now having the same podcast, and then be like the roster's up to now 50, and they did this crazy Overwatch character that's controlled by 2 people. Like they're going to stick with this. There's going to be content. This is going to be something that this is going to have a life of at least 4 to 5 years. And so when you're looking at it, it's like, do I want to like make this investment? Do I want to try this? I'm not sure this is actually going to be a thing. It's something that at the very least there's going to be content updates. It's something that Blizzard will do their normal polish for a very long time.
Yeah, I agree. They're not gonna let Overwatch be a flash in the pan. Even if
No.
it's not immediately successful, they're gonna keep pushing it and keep adding to it,
Yes.
and hope in the hopes of it getting more successful the next time.
Yeah.
And you mentioned 2 years from now it'll have 50 characters, but I'm not so certain about that because I don't know if they're gonna do the MOBA character route necessarily.
I
Because
am shocked they have not, but I fully expect this to have a MOBA component at some point.
let's talk about that a little bit because Heroes of the Storm, they release a new character for free either every 3 or 4 weeks, and then you can buy that character either with in-game currency, which you earn by playing, or with real money. But Heroes of the Storm also does not have a purchase price. You can jump in it for free, play a few missions, get some gold, and then start buying heroes permanently. And some heroes are a new group of 7 heroes is free every week.
Right.
But for Overwatch, this is a little controversial. At least people were talking about it quite a bit when it was announced. It has a $40 purchase price immediately, but all 21 characters are. I think maybe they're calling them heroes. All 21 heroes are in the game, and once you buy them, you can use any of those 21 heroes without any issue. And
which I'm ecstatic about. I'm
right,
so happy you can just buy it.
right, and also
I'm shocked they did that, but I am so happy they did that.
yeah, I thought it was going to be a free to play MOBA style game before they announced that. That was my assumption. And there's also a $60 version of the game that gives you a bunch of extras like skins, and Blizzard does the cross pollination thing where buying the special edition gives you a bunch of little treats for all of your other Blizzard games. Like a Tracer, who is a Overwatch hero, is going to be playable in Heroes of the Storm. I think I mentioned that earlier.
Yep.
And if you buy the Origins version, then you get her for free in Heroes of the Storm.
So I have to stop you right there.
Right.
Did you already pre-order?
I did not.
I have already pre-ordered the PS4 version.
Okay. Oh no, and also the Origin versions only are coming to PS4 and Xbox One, and
Yes.
the $40 version and $60 versions are both coming to PC. So we know that, and we know that. I mean, I think both of us are going to assume there's going to be more Overwatch characters than those initial 21. But how are they going to be released?
So I'm gonna touch on that quickly. In a minute. I think first of all, where I was saying like MOBA tendencies, I think you have the traditional arena shooter. I think you have those mechanics. I think at some point though they do something like Titanfall did, where there is heroes, but you have your quote unquote creep of like the stupid minions that run around that are AI controlled for each side.
Right. Okay.
That are just kind of fodder, but they add more something to it.
Yeah, all MOBAs have those. Like there's creep waves or minion waves in Heroes of the Storm.
Right, and I think that's where it comes. I'm not necessarily convinced that it'll be like we're trying to destroy this tower, but I think that there'll be a component of that when it launches. Or
you think maybe a horde mode where you just fight tons of minion waves as a group for a score?
I don't know, maybe. And like, there's so much that they can do with this, and that's where it's like I'm confident they can make this a game that has content for many, many years. For buying heroes, that becomes interesting. The knee-jerk reaction is, hey, you bought this game, we're going to do DLC packs, so you can buy 3 heroes for $5.
I wish it would be that cheap.
I know.
A new hero, if you spend money on every hero that comes in Heroes of the Storm, it's $10 every 3 weeks.
Right. Yeah, I'm putting a very nice spin on what the dollar would be.
Sure.
The calloused Hearthstone version of me says, hey, buy these card packs, and there's a 1 in 70 chance that you'll actually get the hero that came out. I don't know. Like, there's obviously going to be some way to do it if you play the game. There's some way that you can just put money in. That's something that they have proven with all their games thus far.
The microtransactions will be a part of the game somehow. The question is it going to be for characters and gameplay influencing stuff, or is it just costumes? Is the question I think is going to be. I'm not sure how they're going to add it.
I think it's going to be something really close to Heroes.
Okay. But
that would be my best guess.
Do you know what game I think is most comparable to Overwatch in terms of what their pricing structure is?
I do not know what game you're talking about.
It's not a Blizzard game. I'm talking about Street Fighter V.
Yes, because I think that's a very good comparison.
Yeah, Street Fighter V is launching with 16 characters, not counting boss characters, for a flat fee for PS4 and PC. I think next year in like February or something.
February, which I don't think it'll be out in February,
yeah. But then they're going to start adding new characters one by one as the game continues on, and like a MOBA, like Heroes of the Storm even, you can either pay with in-game money that you earn from playing, or with real money that you earn from a job, probably. And so I think that would make sense for Overwatch, to have a steady stream of new content and new characters, and have them be playable either with in-game rewards or with real money.
Yeah.
Because
I absolutely agree.
If it was only real money, people would be upset because they would immediately accuse the game of being pay to win.
Well, and then also it's something that as a console gamer you're used to, but I don't think the Blizzard Legion as a whole is used to it.
Well, I mean, the Blizzard Legion as a whole is used to paying subscription fees and things like that, and the console Legion mostly prefers to have the complete game in one package. But it's we don't know exactly how they're going to go for how they're going to pay for new content going forward. But it's really interesting that they chose not to make it free to play from the get-go.
Yes.
And I mean, you pre-ordered it and you're really keen on playing it, and I'm more of taking a wait and see attitude. I want to know a little bit more on how the pricing structure and and how all of the content shakes out
Well,
before I pre-order.
I needed my Hearthstone card back, so
Right.
we'll just leave it at that.
That
Yeah.
Tracer
So
hero does look good.
and the Tracer hero is awesome because I still need my as many heroes as I can get in that game. So yeah, then we kind of roll into going from really excited for me for Hearthstone and Overwatch. We roll into something that like I don't care anymore, and that's World of Warcraft.
Yeah, and I never played World of Warcraft. I'll read about this after the fact. World of Warcraft Legion, Broken Isles are playable. They went to the Broken Isles in Warcraft 2 sometime. And Illidan's coming back. Illidan's is a raid boss again.
Which Illidan's awesome, but it's one of those things. This is how it always happened, and this is I can't remember what the last expansion was called.
Warlords of Draenor.
Yes, thank you. Uh, I was looking at it and I stared at it, and there's people at work that were gonna play it. I have a bunch of friends that were gonna play it. They're jumping back in, and I sat on I had it in my cart for weeks, and I finally did not click buy, and I'm so
Okay,
happy.
you had it in your cart for weeks online. You didn't like go to Target and stay there for weeks staring at a game in your red cart.
No, no, no. They probably would have kicked me out or like called the loony bin on me. I don't know. But yeah, so it's one of those things that, like I really, really honestly debated. I loved my time with World of Warcraft. I really, really enjoyed it. Those are some of my favorite gaming memories. It's just something that feels like it's in the past, and it feels like everything they do is trying to bring that excitement back. And I'm not sure there's actually a way to do it. And I know that sounds really terrible. Like you look at it, and it's like, oh, the cinematic trailer sounds really cool. Hey, they have this new class. That's really exciting. And you look at it, it's like, oh, we'll
I
have
mean,
the Horde and Alliance battle together. And
it's
it's
a
like,
demon hunter class that
yeah,
uses
which
demon powers, which
I just want
ties
Diablo to
yeah.
come in.
Sure. That ties into bringing in Illidan, who's also a demon hunter
Right.
guy.
It's just I just don't care anymore. And I feel terrible saying that because I like 8 years ago, me would beat the crap out of me for saying that. But yeah, it's just, I've moved on to other things. Like if I want that type of experience, like a loot-driven experience that I can even play with other people, I'd much rather play Diablo 3.
Right.
And
Me too.
it's just it's hard for me to go back, and I I'm not even excited. Like Draenor, like I was getting amped up. Like I was very, very close to pulling the trigger on going back on that. Legion, I can't swear on this podcast. I give two Fs about.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're a lapsed fan. You had your, you had your time with World of Warcraft. You had your amount of enjoyment you could get from World of Warcraft, and now you're basically done, and it'll take something really crazy to drag you back in.
Yep,
That,
and they're
I
just
don't
not
think
doing
that's,
it.
yeah, I don't think that's unreasonable. But I mean, even though World of Warcraft is at its all-time low, since it first launched, in terms of subscribers, that's still 5 million people
Yep,
that pay for World of Warcraft every month.
and
So
pay is the key thing. I will come back as soon as it's free.
right, yeah, that makes sense. But
As soon as it's free, it's day one. I will download that. I'll actually buy any expansion I need to get up to that point that is free.
right, and even though World of Warcraft is not Blizzard's top dog anymore, I think their top earner is almost certainly Hearthstone.
Hearthstone dominates.
Yeah, that those 5 million people are nothing to turn your nose at. So I think
No.
they're gonna keep making WoW expansions as long as there are people that are willing in large numbers that are willing to pay for World of Warcraft. So
Which makes me ecstatic because when it eventually goes free, there will be a boatload of content for me to experience.
oh yeah, it's gonna be crazy, and it'll be man, that'll be like end of an era when World of Warcraft goes free to play. Since I think it took Star Wars: The Old Republic about 6 months to go free to play.
Yeah.
If World of Warcraft goes free to play next year, it will have been 12 years.
Which is insane.
So
and I'm excited then to watch you, who have never played it before, jump into 12 years of gaming and watch your life just deteriorate.
Yeah, wow. No one will ever hear from me ever again unless they send me a message in the WoW chat.
I'm gonna have to make a trip out to see you and just like drag you out of your place.
He's like, come on, man, you live in Washington, D.C. There's all kinds of crazy stuff to experience here. He's like, nope, World of Warcraft, stuck in Azeroth.
I'll be like
Goodbye.
taking you to the Lincoln Memorial and be like, that reminds me of a time of somebody else sitting on a throne. I'm like, no, that's not comparable.
Sure.
So
So
I
how
don't.
about we transition out of World of Warcraft discussion into a game that I am excited about.
You mean the only reason you agreed to do this podcast with me?
I wanted to talk about Heroes of the Storm as well.
No, you wanted to talk about Diablo. Don't act like you didn't. So go on. This is the moment in the podcast so everybody's aware. I probably mute my mic and just walk away. But
Okay, all right. Well, I'll still occasionally direct something at you and maybe getting a grunt in return in case on the off chance that you are still around. But Diablo 3 announced a ton of new patch information for 2.4. They did not get a spot on the main stage. Diablo was not mentioned in the opening ceremony. You had to go to the special. They had like a fake inn set up with with developers and beers that you could just hang out at, and then they had I think it was an hour or an hour and a half long reveal of the new patch, and then a discussion and a Q&A. So the Diablo section of BlizzCon was smaller than the bathrooms. Looking at the map, you could tell that Diablo was off in a corner because it's not making ongoing money with microtransactions, and it doesn't have a new expansion to announce. So
which I dumbfounded about. I'm not
yeah,
sure if there just wasn't a there. We kind of alluded to it at the beginning. This is, I think, to me at least personally, like the biggest BlizzCon that there's been. Like this was insane.
yeah, it was huge.
Um,
They had 6 games that to focus on for the first time ever.
right, and I could hear like, oh, they announced Starcraft II. That would have been huge, and I agree. Like there's moments, but when you look at the grand spectrum of everything that was announced, this one was massive, and I'm not sure if there just wasn't enough space left. But it seemed like going into it, this was the logical time to be like, hey, here's an expansion.
Well,
It is coming to
they
PC, PS4, Xbox One on this date. Get excited. It's going to be the comparable of. Wow, I'm terrible at names this morning.
sure.
The Reaper of Souls.
Right. Well, I actually thought might have been an expansion announcement since if they announced one, it would probably come out mid 2016, and Reaper of Souls came out in mid 2014. So it would have been 2 years. It's Diablo 3 still getting a lot of play, and they're updating it constantly. I thought we had a chance of a new expansion, but that didn't happen. What we are getting is this 2.4 patch where uh, they're basically making they're changing and adding a bunch of new legendary items. Everything is going to be the numbers are going to get bigger. Everyone's going to seem more powerful. I think 10 item sets got reworked to be as powerful as the current top item sets. And they're introducing three new zones or dungeons, kind of like the Ruins of Sescheron from the last patch that barbarian dungeon in Act 3. They're having
Mhm.
3 new dungeons like that.
Which I really liked that section.
Oh yeah,
Like, I
exactly.
thought that was really cool.
Yeah, new dungeons, the new content in the form of dungeons to explore and quests within those dungeons is great. I am excited for all 3 of those. But they've also, along with the revamped sets, they have these special things called set dungeons, where to unlock a set dungeon, first you need to have the entire item set equipped. And they're making getting item sets easier now, since there's going to be you're going to have item sets as rewards for completing seasonal quests on the PC version, and a different way other than seasons for console versions, since they don't have the PC seasons.
Yeah, which is super annoying.
Yeah,
As somebody that plays on the PS4, like I always look over. It's like those seasons. That would be enough for me to play every month
right.
instead of
And
dropping
that's
in
what.
occasionally.
Yeah, well, I mean, the seasons are more like every 3 or 4 months, but every time a new season launches, the number of the Diablo 3 player base multiplies by 10, and they play
Yeah.
for a solid month, and then it wanes down until the next season. But for this new season, it'll be easier to get sets, and once you have a full set equipped, you can do some quests in these 3 new dungeons to unlock a set dungeon, which is a portal, kind of like a rift or a greater rift. And basically that set dungeon will have enemies and objectives and rewards tailored to that set. So let's say I'm playing a wizard and I have the full Firebird set, which is like um, the more enemies that are taking fire damage, the more your damage goes up, and if you die, you explode and then immediately revive once every 4 minutes or something. I think it's more complicated than that, but it's just a bunch of fire damage, and you can revive like a phoenix once every 4 minutes. the enemies in that Firebird armor set dungeon will just be tightly grouped bunches of enemies that are practically begging to be set on fire, and objectives like have 100 enemies set on fire at the same time, kill 100 enemies with your Firebird explosion, and complete it, and just basically dungeons geared towards the skills used in specific sets that give you rewards tailored for those specific sets, and then ongoing seasonal achievements for mastering all 24 sets in the game, because each one of the 6 classes has 4 sets that represents a different playstyle each. It is nuts. Like for a new Diablo player, you probably don't understand 80% of the words I just said. But if you're an a Diablo player that is already invested and know about set hunting and building around set items, and you know how rifts and greater rift portals work, it sounds amazing. They're just doubling down on the hardcore Diablo reward stuff, and it looks awesome, and it doesn't cost anyone a dime. It
That's the biggest thing. Like I just don't.
Yeah, and
I,
they didn't do an announcement for it, but it looks like that the current season, which is season 4 on the 2.3 patch, is ending in December, and the 2.4 patch in season 5 and all this new content is going to launch in early 2016.
I so I love Diablo. I really like it. It's too bad that I've spent hundreds of hours on the PS4 version because I missed out on a lot of this extra stuff most of the time for the PC. And also I can't play with you, which
Yeah,
you'd
that
probably
is a
ruin my
bummer.
life. But every game we have talked about, they have made some way to have recurring income off of. And
Right.
Diablo's that weird like black box where it's like we're gonna dump time and effort and make this perfect experience for the player, but we're not gonna ask for anything else. Like we don't want more money, and that's so confusing to me because I feel like there has to be something that they're working on.
Right. And going back in time a little bit, remember there was a Diablo 3 auction house where you could spend real money to get items, but that made people furious because that really you could make the pay to win argument for Diablo at that time. I didn't like it either.
That's one of those
That
things that's
that's
just
not my Diablo.
it's insane to look at. You look at Diablo 3 when it came out, and you look at Diablo 3 post like Loot 2.0, post Reaper of Souls, and now where we are today, and the changes they have made. That is not even close to being the same game that it used to be. It is 100 times better.
It is so awesome now when it was such a turnoff for many fans when it launched in I think 2012. But the thing is, if they knew what they knew now, they would have not had an auction house. They would have had cosmetic changes like wings and pets
Right.
and transmogs for your skin. Transmogs are appearance changes where you enchant your armor to look different, even but it doesn't have any game. It doesn't have any gameplay change. If they had sold those and started uh, started slow and then made them more and more available, then people would be 100% cool with it, and people would be spending thousands of dollars on Diablo every month. But
Legitimately, my saddest moment of Diablo 3 was going from my 360 version to my PS4 version because I lost my pre-order wings.
oh no, that's a bummer.
Yeah, it didn't it was like the only thing that didn't transfer over,
I
and
actually,
it crushed me. I was so sad.
yeah, I don't have any. I didn't have any pre-order bonus stuff for Reaper of Souls or regular Diablo 3 since I started playing Reaper of Souls earlier this year instead of when it launched. So I don't have any wings. I have a couple pets from seasonal rewards, but I don't have any dope ass wings, and that makes me really sad.
Those
Uh,
were like, I was like, I was so excited. I got my PS4. I'm like, yeah. I'm setting it up and doing this weird transfer, and then like, there's this little tiny message pops up. I was like, by the way, any pre-order items aren't gonna come over. Like, yeah, right, okay, whatever, accept. Go downstairs, like, turn it on. I'm like, yeah, let's do this. And I was like, why is my purse? Oh, yeah, they look
the
weird because they don't
wings.
have wings.
Yep.
Yeah, that really sucks.
So, so, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be more.
There's gonna be more wings.
There's going to be more wings. I promise. Yeah, I think you might even have gotten some wings from your BlizzCon virtual ticket. I'm not sure about that though.
Probably.
And they did mention, I don't know if I said this before, but they did mention that a lot of the seasonal exclusive stuff in the PC version is going to find its way onto console,
Yeah, I would
probably
be
via
so happy when that happens.
probably via patching or via some kind of quest rewards. But Dude, I mean, especially since it's only a patch and not an expansion, this
It's
seems like
insane.
it's crazy. It seems like so much stuff. Like Diablo fans, even though they didn't get the expansion that many of us wanted, we're gonna have a lot of new toys to play with once this drops. And I'm excited. I'm probably gonna roll a wizard since that's the class I've spent the least amount of time in. And yeah, go nuts once this patch drops in 2016.
So, for all fans of RPG Fan and Retro Encounter, don't expect to see anything from Mike Sollosi in the next year.
Hmm. I'll check in with you in July of 2016.
Awesome. That sounds wonderful. So yeah, that's gonna do it for us in BlizzCon. I hope you guys enjoyed our Blizzard encounter, as we've decided to coin it. As always, you can reach out to us on Twitter or the boards. Please let us know what you guys want. This is going to be the first of most likely many bonus rounds.
Right,
Uh,
yeah, outside of the podcast, we've talked about things that we would love to talk about on the podcast, but don't really fit.
yeah,
Um,
like one-off conversations that become huge genre things or industry-wide things, or we want to talk about games that we could no way in hell ever finish in a month.
yeah, like one game in particular I'm thinking of, but there are games that we want to talk about on the podcast, but would be totally unfair to ask a listener or a podcaster to finish in 1 month.
Yeah, so we're gonna start doing progressively more and more theme-based supplementary podcasts outside of like this is not going to affect our normal month of having 3 games. These are gonna be totally just like one-off things. It might be 2 people, it could be 3, it could be 4 people jumping on this. So we'd love to have some feedback. First of all, how much you liked this. But when we start doing more and more, like we'll obviously bring up like, can you guys let us know like, is there a topic you'd like to hear? Obviously that's more of a 2016 thing. But just so you guys are aware of kind of the future where the podcast is going to go.
Yeah, you don't have to just ask us to play certain games for Retro Encounter. Now you can ask us to talk about whatever you want, and we will listen because we read every email and every post on the forums that is directed to us.
Yep. Yeah. So 2015 was us getting kind of our feet wet with podcasting, getting this kind of on the getting this working and running and making sure we knew what we were doing. 2016 is going to be kind of a year of growth for us, and we'll do a bunch of new kind of hopefully fun and exciting things for you guys. So hopefully you'll like it. So yeah, just let us know. Um, Maybe if this is a big enough thing, we can convince people that run RPG Fan to send us to BlizzCon next year. Fingers crossed on that, right?
I would have no objections if they were able to help me go to BlizzCon in 2016. I don't know if it'll happen, but oh, that would be cool.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, that is going to do it for this bonus round. Thanks for listening.
Goodbye.